Well, thank you, Greg, and thank you, C-Squared, for having me, and thanks everyone for coming, for showing up. I'm really happy to be here. This is a festival of innovation and creativity, so I feel very much at home. And the quote that I tweeted last night is actually going to be part of my presentation, which I'm calling "Things a Little Bird Told Me." And as you can see, the bird is pointing directly at me this time. I want to very briefly tell you a few stories because I want to get very quickly to a conversation that I'm going to have with Alberto, in which he'll ask me some deep and probing questions. But what I wanted to share with you guys is the story of how we created Twitter at the beginning, and then how what happened during that process that really opened our eyes and made us realize what we had on our hands. And then I want to go back in time a little bit and, if you don't mind, tell a couple of personal stories, which, if you don't find them informative, maybe you'll at least find them amusing. And then I want to talk a little bit about how we think about and how we run Twitter, the company, as a startup. And then we'll get to the questions. So just very quickly, I'll start. This is a photo that was taken 30 seconds after I got married. And as you can see, I'm super happy. I'm smiling. This is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. And my wife looks like she's just made the biggest mistake of her life. And I've tried to tell her ever since that was 3 years ago. I tell her, sometimes mistakes can be good things. There's good mistakes. And they can turn out well, like Twitter, actually, we weren't even supposed to be working on it, and it turned out into a big thing, so, mistakes can be good, and we're happily married, as far as I know. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about mistakes later, as has been previously referenced. So, getting to early Twitter. Okay, so here's the thing about how we started Twitter. We were supposed to be working on something else entirely different. I had quit a very great job to get back into the startup world. My co-founder Evan Williams and I were working at this startup, and we just weren't emotionally engaged at all in the product that we were building. We didn't use it ourselves. We just thought other people might like it, and that's not a good way to create a company or a product. So we decided to take 2 weeks, pair up with other people in their company, and develop something that we felt passionate about, that we were interested in. Now, I've spent the last 10 years or more developing large-scale systems that allow people to express themselves and communicate, namely blogging platforms. And so is my co-founder, Evan Williams. And so what I did was I paired up with an engineer at this other company named Jack Dorsey. We took 2 weeks to build a prototype of Twitter that took this idea of this expressing yourself in this sort of open fashion, and we decided to build it on something that was becoming very popular and emerging in the United States, which was text messaging, or SMS. In 2006, it was just getting started in the United States, and so that's where the 140-character limit comes from, because there's a 160-character limit on international SMS, and we wanted to leave a little bit of room in front of the message for the name of the author of the tweet. And we wanted these messages to be short because we wanted them to work on all devices around the world. So we built the prototype for Twitter, and we showed it to some of our friends and some of our colleagues, and they didn't like it. Nobody cared. So that it's not the sort of instant success story that you would have hoped for. They said, it's too simple. Can't you make it more complicated, and then maybe it'll be interesting? And, the first experience I had with it was I had decided to do some home renovation. And my wife and I had bought this little house in Berkeley, California, and it was a heat wave. And I'm very bad at home renovation, but I decided that I would remove all of the carpeting in the house and by myself. And so I was on my hands and knees, ripping out carpeting, sweating, discovering things underneath the carpet that I don't want to talk about. And it was a terrible job. I shouldn't have done it. And then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out, and it was my co-founder, Evan Williams, and it was a tweet that said, sipping a Pinot Noir after a massage in Napa Valley. And I just laughed out loud because, of the difference of our activities. But I realized I was laughing out loud, and I realized now that I was emotionally invested in this product, and that was meaningful to me. So for the first 9 months or so, all everyone did with Twitter is criticize it. And the main critique of Twitter was, Twitter is not useful. To which my co-founder, Evan Williams, replied, neither is ice cream. Should we ban ice cream? Should we ban all joy? No. So we were having fun. We were emotionally invested. We continued to work on Twitter and evolve it a little bit and respond to our friends and colleagues' suggestions and so forth. But we kept it very simple. But then something happened, and this was in Austin, Texas, in March of 2007. There were just enough people experimenting with Twitter at the time, and this was an event that a lot of technical type people like to go to every year in Austin, Texas. And this was the first time, really, that Twitter was sort of released out into the wild, so to speak, and we were able to watch how people used it. And there were some amazing things that happened at this time. First thing that happened was, during the conference, I was sitting and I was watching a panel during this conference that I've been going to for 5 years, and I saw all these people standing up, and they were just all leaving in the middle of the panel, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was almost as if someone had come over the PA system and said, everybody leave, but there was no PA system. So what were they doing? They were tweeting amongst themselves on their phones and on their laptops that there was a more interesting lecture going on across the hall. And they just silently got up and all went over there in one group. Later that night, because this conference is also more of a party and it's more about networking and partying at night, later that night there was a guy at a pub, and he was complaining that the pub was too loud. He wanted to be able to communicate more with his friends and his colleagues in this pub. So he sent out one tweet that said, hey, listen, this bar is too loud. Let's move to this other bar where we'll be able to talk more quietly. And he sent out that tweet and he named the bar. And in the 10 minutes it took him to walk down the street to the other bar, it had completely filled the capacity and there was a line out the door. So his plan backfired. And the reason it backfired is because he sent out this one tweet to his followers, and then his followers sent the tweet out to their followers, and so on. And within 10 minutes, 800 people had showed up at this bar. And that's when sort of the hair stood up on the back of our necks. Because when you think about the idea of a flock of birds moving around an object in flight, it's something that looks so incredibly choreographed. It's beautiful, and it looks really complicated. But it's not complicated. The mechanics of flocking are actually very simple. A rudimentary communication among